So welcome to chapter 3, how do nouns refer? So this chapter will be dedicated to reference building or détermination nominale in French. So basically it is the idea that determiners play a part in building reference, that is to say in connecting a word with its referent in reality. So this is where we are in our general layout, chapter 3, how do nouns refer? And these are the objectives for this course. So by the end of it, you should be able to know the list of determiners in English and identify them in a text. List the criteria to determine the choice of a determiner. Define the notions of generic, non-generic, specific, non-specific, and definite and indefinite references by relying on examples in English. Use the right determiner while writing in English or in a translation. Explain the choice of a determiner in a typical and atypical context. And compare how French and English determiners work. Right? So here is the outline of this course, and the first question we can ask ourselves is, what are determiners and articles for? Well, determiners take part in the reference building. If you say man is single, the word man does not refer to anything, and you're going to ask, what man? Okay, so you're going to need a determiner to build that reference, and that man tells you that the referent is nearby, that you could point at him or a picture of him. Or you can be more specific by saying the man on the cover of this magazine. Here, the determiner signals how the reference is built, how to forge a bond between the word and the real thing, the referent. For instance, the doesn't tell you which man it is, but it tells you that you have everything you need to identify the referent. In fact, it's the prepositional complement that built the referent on the cover of this magazine. Okay? So, now let's see if you can spot determiners in a sentence. So this is an exercise that your friends did in class. So they had to identify each referent for each sentence, each determiner for each sentence, sorry. So my sister, enough money, and her ticket. In this sentence, John's roommate went home for the weekend. The obvious one is the, but you should not miss John's, which is actually a sort of determination, and the zero article in front of home. Every course I'm taking this term has a midterm exam, shouldn't pose any problem. You've got every, you've got this, and you've got a. Bill spent more money on the week's groceries than he expected to. Same thing here. Now you know what to look for. So you have a zero article in front of bill, more in front of money, the week's genitive case in front of groceries. And of course you also have the in front of week. And final sentence, I just love this exercise. Isn't spotting determiners everyone's dream? So you've got this in front of exercise, the zero article in front of determiners, and everyone's in front of dream. Okay, so what to do with that? Let's recap. Okay, so all the examples from the exercise are here, and you can find a list of all these categories. Okay, so you could find possessives like my, his, her, etc. Quantifiers, in the text you had more, enough, for example. Genitives is also something that you can put on the determination slot, as you remember from the previous chapter, like John's or the week. You also have demonstratives that belong to the category of determiners, like this, that, and articles. Okay, and we are going to pay special attention to articles, but beware, do not confuse determiners and articles. Articles are a subcategory of determiners. Okay, so you can't use the word determiner instead of the word articles. Articles is way more specific. So by this time, you should be ready to do the first activity on eCampus 3.1, that is to spot determiners as well. So let's start with the two criteria that can help you choose determiners. Okay, so there are things that you already know, and for example, the first criterion is the type of noun you have in front of it. So to choose your determiner correctly, or to explain the use of a determiner, you must take into account the way the noun works, and this is what we studied in the previous chapters. Okay, so Is the word countable, uncountable, singular or plural? Is it a proper noun? All of this is going to influence your choice of determiner. Okay? For instance, you know from the previous sentences that in most cases, singular count nouns cannot function without a determiner in English, whereas there are cases where it is perfectly acceptable in French. You need to pay particular attention to appositions, like in the sentence Angelina, mère de 6 enfants, vient de divorcer. So you know that would be in English, Angelina, a mother of 6, is freshly divorced. You also need to pay specific attention to subject complement describing a profession, like in French, Derek est médecin. You know that in English you would need to say Derek is a doctor. And finally, don't forget that even if in French you would say Captain America ne sort jamais sans bouclier with the zero article, in English you need an article, and you would say Captain America never goes out without a shield. So the rule is, remember, with singular count nouns, you need to have a determiner. Okay? Conversely, another rule that you've learned from the previous chapter is that you can't find a or an in front of singular non-count nouns. Okay? So it means that il s'est fait mal au dos en portant un meuble would translate as he hurt his back carrying a piece of furniture in English. You can't say a furniture, that would be incorrect. Same way, c'est une super nouvelle, you need to say this is great news. Okay? You can't use a in front of news because it is singular and countable. Right, so these are things you already know, and you should be able to write proper translation from French to English in this second eCampus activity. Okay, so try to log in and do this one. Now let's talk about the second criterion. This is something that we haven't seen so far. And this second criterion is the type of reference, and it's going to help you choose or justify the use of a determiner with the reference of the noun phrase. So you don't know what the reference of the noun phrase means at that stage, but you can sense that when you say, I'm afraid of dogs and I'm afraid of the dogs that live across the street, it won't translate, it doesn't convey the same thing. Okay? So we'll come back to that difference, but you can already feel that in the first sentence you speak about dogs in general, and this is what we call a generic reference, whereas you speak about specific dogs in the second sentence. Okay? So remember, every time you need to choose or explain the use of a determiner, you need to take into account the type of noun and the type of reference, and we will develop this later on in this chapter.